Hi, friends. Welcome back and welcome to some faces. Oh boy. Okay, let me open. I already opened my presentation. Oh, here it is. All right. So, in this session, we have vice presidents and treasurers. So, our treasurers are back together again, but there are some new faces. We are going to talk about dues waivers. So both local and national dues waivers. And so we have vice presidents in here because typically they oversee this process for their chapter. And then treasurers need this information in order to file things. Claire, what is it? I see your hand.
One quick question. If vice presidents are in here, I know my vice president is in this meeting, but I do not see her in this breakout room.
Oh,
If she's supposed to be in this one.
okay, hold on. Yeah, it's vice president, treasurer. Okay, what's your chapter vice president's name?
Addie Gold.
Oh, you know what? Addie joined at the last minute, so she might have been in the wrong place. So let's move her.
Oh, there she is. Hi, Addie.
Hi, we moved you because I heard you were the vice president and you're supposed to be in this room. But I don't know if we had you on our list, which might be why you're in a different room. So, welcome. We're going to be talking about dues waivers, both local and national, but mostly local dues waivers. All right. I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. I like to fix it where I can see all of your faces. Okay, so let's talk about what we are going to cover. So the purpose of this session is to assist chapters in forming a CSB, or sometimes it's the executive board. So either way, a process for accepting applications for and approving local dues waivers. We're going to cover the purpose of dues waivers, suggested chapter procedures, some examples of what you can ask on the application, and then some recommendations for how you go about the approval process. And then we're going to talk about the chapter's role in national dues waivers. And I do have some information to share with you about national dues waivers. And I would love to answer all the questions that you may have about dues waivers. So, and during this presentation, if you have a question, please raise your hand and I will let's ask as we go throughout this so we can cover anything that needs to be covered. All right, so why should you offer local dues waivers? I think this, you may look at this and you're like, why is this a question, Alyssa? But we learned at convention that some chapters are not offering local dues waivers. So that's why we wanted to do this presentation and talk about this. So one of Omega Phi Alpha's core values is inclusivity. And we recognize that there are cases of extreme financial hardship that definitely prevent members from being able to pay dues and or fees. So in order to remove any financial barriers to participation for members of our organization, we do offer dues waivers and payment plans. So really the purpose of offering dues waivers is rooted in our core value of inclusivity. So often we get questions like, well, how do you define extreme financial hardship? Like, what is that? So I think the most basic definition of extreme financial hardship is when a person is unable to provide for themselves, their family, or any other dependents that rely on them with their basic needs like food, accommodation, clothing. And this could be a result of a family tragedy, a financial misfortune, a serious illness, or maybe there's some impacts of a natural disaster, or that list is not all inclusive. There are other serious and difficult situations that put a person in a position. There could be other extraordinary, unforeseeable circumstances that arise as a result of events beyond their control. I do want to say here that payment of college tuition is not considered an extreme financial hardship. You are college students and you do have to pay tuition to go to college. So sometimes we do get dues waiver applications like, I have a tuition payment. It's like, well, yes, tuition is expensive, and it definitely is a financial burden for many people to pay that. So not to discount that it is expensive. However, that's expected when you're a college student. So this is just like generally how we would define extreme financial hardship. Are there any questions about this? Okay. So what is a dues waiver? Again, you might be thinking, Alyssa, this is a ridiculous question to ask us. Dues waivers remove the need to pay membership dues for one semester. So they are one semester at a time. So again, members who are experiencing hardship are eligible to apply for dues waivers on both the local and national levels. So the chapter standards board would set the guidelines for local dues waivers, or your chapter can set this, and it should be written in your constitution and or bylaws. So you should have guidelines for what local dues waivers are. The guidelines should not conflict with, like, generally speaking, what the national organization defines dues waivers as. The board of directors, with input from the operational leadership team, sets the guidelines for national dues waivers. And we also accept input from members of the sorority. So that includes all of you as active members. When we're reevaluating our dues waiver procedure, we typically do that from many different angles. So it's often from like a financial angle of, like, I'll give you an example. In 2019, I think spring 2019, we offered about $5,000 in dues waiver. Maybe it was like $3,000. And then in fall 2019, we offered like $6,000 in dues waivers. And we started to notice this increase pre-COVID. And then when COVID hit, it suddenly was like we are giving $10,000 of dues waivers, $12,000. And when we did like a full evaluation of it, it's like, oh, okay, maybe we've like missed something. We've missed some guidelines. We did a lot of research into other fraternal membership type organizations similar to ours to see what type of waivers they offer and what the guidelines are for that. And we use all the information, so the data that we have, the information we gather from others, to reevaluate our dues waiver procedure. And often we get input from members of the sorority, and we do modify from time to time based on that. So a dues waiver is not a loan. Want to be really clear about that. When we are approving a dues waiver for a member, there is no expectation that they will pay us back. It is not a loan. We are giving them a waiver for the dues. Also, a dues waiver is not guaranteed. So I think this is really important for both the local and the national level, is that someone has to apply for a dues waiver. And, on the local level, you all have to determine that the member is indeed experiencing extreme financial hardship and therefore needs their dues to be waived. So a local dues waiver also does not guarantee a national dues waiver. We'll talk a little bit more again about the chapter's role in national dues waivers, but I just think it used to previously, many semesters ago, a local dues waiver did automatically grant a national dues waiver. So I just want to make sure we're clear that that's no longer the case. Any questions? No questions? Right. Okay, so let's talk about some potential procedures that you all can set for local waivers. You must have written procedures. This is something that is called out in the National Constitution. So a chapter must have written procedures in their bylaws or a procedure manual. I think only a few chapters have like an additional manual beyond their constitution and bylaws that has procedures. But if you do have that, it can be written in that. And that procedure must include what the petition covers, like what is the petition process for a member to request a waiver? What is the deadline for submissions? And the deadline needs to be prior to the national dues waiver deadline. So currently, national dues are due October 1st, and the dues waiver deadline is September 15th. So if you are really, your local dues waiver deadline really should be like September 1st or September 5th, because you have to give a time to review applications for local dues waivers and approve or deny them. And then the members who are approved need time to meet the national dues waiver deadline, which is September 15th. And then you need a process spelled out in writing for the chapter to review and consider all petitions. And you also need to know what dues and fees are going to be eligible for a local dues waiver. So in the national constitution, it names all the dues that we waive. And so at a minimum, you need to waive those same dues and fees on the local level. But if you assess fees for other things, you need to determine if a member who gets a waiver in that semester, if they are eligible to also have their fees waived in that same semester. Any questions? Okay, so here's option one for an application or a petition process on the local level. So you could develop a dues waiver application that gathers the following information: a member's financial status. I would say generally financial status. They can write in the circumstances that have created extreme hardship. They could share some of their financial obligations. This is, again, like very generally speaking. Sometimes people will put like they have, rent to pay, car payment, they give X amount of money to their family every month, general things like that. And then maybe their current income in a general sense. Again, it doesn't need to be like specific dollar amounts, but they could sort of explain like what their current income situation is. If you decide to use an application that is this detailed, you should have your chapter advisor review it to ensure that you're not asking any information that's prohibited by your university. Okay, here's option two. You can develop a written application that asks the member to explain the circumstances that have created financial hardship and why they are requesting a waiver. So just 2 questions that they need to answer. It's short and sweet, and it allows you to gather like more informal information and make a decision based on the written request. And then option 3 is that maybe you're not asking them to explain anything in writing. You are simply asking them to confirm that they are experiencing extreme financial hardship and that they need a dues waiver. So this could be like a Google form or a form on OPA portal where you say, are you experiencing extreme financial hardship? And they say yes or no. And then you ask them, do you need a waiver for local dues, fees, whatever you're allowing, yes or no? Then you can have a interview or meeting, whether that's the executive board or the chapter standards board, where you get all of the pertinent information. So if you have questions based on there, or you want to hear more about their financial hardship to confirm that it qualifies, you can ask it in person. So I think the pro to this is that it's a little bit more personable. Sometimes I think people feel more comfortable sharing, directly instead of typing it out. They feel more comfortable when they're face-to-face sharing information. Okay, so those are the 3 main application options that I came up with. But I would love to open the floor here. If anyone else has a process that your chapter uses that you feel works, if you want to share that with others, or if you have any questions about the process. Anyone? Okay. Well, we'll talk about the approval process then. So the approval process is different depending on the type of application process that you choose. And again, some chapters have the executive board only considered applications, and some the chapter standards board. The goal of the approval process is for whatever body of people is making the decision to determine if the member is experiencing extreme financial hardship and therefore they should receive a waiver. So that's all we're doing here, is we're confirming that a member has extreme financial hardship that fits into some form of the definition and that they should have a waiver. So if you determine that the need for financial assistance is temporary and does not warrant a full waiver of dues for the semester, you can still help the member meet their financial obligations to the sorority. So maybe it's something like when they submit the application, they say, I've had a lapse in employment, but I start a new job in a week. Maybe you would see like, oh, we should reduce the dues, or we should offer them a payment plan for when they start their job and have more income. So I would say what I'm learning from chapters with payment plans is to ask the member how they want to have a payment plan. And the feedback that we recently received from a couple of chapters was that a monthly payment plan doesn't actually solve the financial assistance problem, that it would actually be better to have a bi-weekly payment plan because many members are working a job where they get paid every 2 weeks. So that's how we set it up on the national level. A couple of other people have mentioned weekly payment plans would be great. Weekly payment plans are hard for us to keep track of. So that's why we did just 3 payments bi-weekly. And of course, if a member says to you, the reason that I can't do it is because I'm looking for a job and haven't found a job, maybe someone who's hiring, or of something for them. And I would say, don't go about this in the sense of oh, I got to get them a job so they can pay dues. You can still grant a dues waiver or offer a payment plan. But I put this here, and if you learn something during the interview or the conversation that you feel like you can help with, or other sisters can help with, you can always ask them, can I help you find a job? I know of some places that are hiring, and offer that assistance. Some considerations to make. For many people, asking for financial assistance comes with a lot of shame. And while it shouldn't, it does. And we really need to be respectful of how hard it can be to ask for help. Asking for help in general can be really hard for some people, and especially financial assistance can be really, really challenging. So we just want to remember that all dues waiver information, any application information, is confidential. All information gathered during the approval process, especially if you're conducting interviews and taking notes, that all of that is confidential. And I would say you should never publish a list of people who receive dues waivers. You do need to share, for financial purposes, the number of dues waivers that were granted, but you do not have to share the names of the people who were granted dues waivers. Sometimes when we do that, if something came to my mind, there was a situation last semester where I guess it was published that everybody, there was the entire executive board got dues waivers, and there were some really negative feelings about that because the executive board determines dues waivers at that chapter. And so it seemed a little bit questionable that the entire executive board got their own dues waivers. So that's definitely something to consider. If it is true that every executive board member needs a dues waiver, and the executive board usually is the body in your chapter deciding dues waivers, maybe we have the chapter standards board consider that for those people. And again, this information was shared, so members of the chapter received the information and were very upset by the fact that the executive board made the decision and gave all of themselves dues waivers. So that's a consideration. Okay, I'm going to stop before we get into national dues waivers. What questions do you all have about local dues waivers?
So,
Go ahead.
What would you do if someone applied for a waiver and like the board deemed like actually we're not really sure this is considered as financial hardship, but then the person is like, well, I'm still not going to pay. How would you handle that?
I think that's why, well, that is challenging. Here's the official answer, and then I'm going to give you a different answer. The official answer is that the Constitution says if a member does not pay dues for 1 semester or longer, they can be disassociated. So that's the answer by the paper. The other answer is that I think it's why it's really important to offer a specific payment plan to that person. Because it's like, okay, you can't pay right now, and we see that like maybe this isn't like financial hardship. So what can we do beyond waiving your dues to help you meet your financial obligation to the organization? Alexa, do you have anything else to add to that from your experience as a chapter treasurer?
I would say that is a good option, a good example, and probably your best option. Make sure also that they are aware that not paying their dues can lead to disassociation. And yeah, it's probably going to be a case by case situation. But I think that that's just exemplifies why there needs to be a lot of thought put into the process you put forward to grant those local dues, and that people understand it when they're in that position to be involved in that, whether they're on CSB, whether it's your executive board, whether you have a group of people who just do this at the beginning of the semester, that might be something that they're involved with. And so I would just say, in consideration with your process, you'll want to know how you make your process will determine how often you have to be in that situation. So if your application leans more towards what Alyssa was describing, where you do ask a lot more details about the need and you're making it more about the evaluation of that need, you might lend yourself to being in that situation more often, or there's not really a good way to handle it. It's always going to feel bad. But I think that the best way to handle it is communicating that up front and letting members know they're going to be held accountable in this manner. So up front, before dues waivers are even due, if you provide very clear information on what will and will not be granted beforehand, there's not really an excuse for them. And especially one thing that we've really been trying to make more clear is some of the administrative issues. And so sometimes if you make very strict considerations about deadlines, then you don't even end up in that position, because then you don't have to get to that question if they didn't even meet the minimum administrative requirements. Not to say that you should create a lot of hoops to jump through, et cetera, to make it more stringent, but just really put a lot of thought and effort into developing a system that, like Alyssa mentioned with the example, is transparent and is not only fair in how it's designed, but has the perception of being fair, because that's just as important as how people perceive the process. So that's just some of my experience from dealing with dues waivers on the local side when I was an active, and from nationals.
Yeah, I think that you make a great point that it never feels great to deny someone a dues waiver, but I think it's really, and we could talk about like how the transparency has to start at recruitment, right? We could go way back and say transparency for the minimum requirements of membership in Omega Phi Alpha goes to recruitment. So like, I had a meeting with a chapter and they were telling me, well, like when we have recruitment, we tell people that dues waivers are an option. And there's like, I think that's great, because we're like advertising that like we are an inclusive organization. If you need a dues waiver, we offer that. But what that has led to for that chapter is like over half of their members are getting dues waivers, local and national dues waivers. And that chapter is very financially healthy. So they can manage that. They can manage the fact that only half their members pay local dues. But some of you right here are part of small chapters. And if half of your chapters weren't paying dues, that would be detrimental to the operation of your chapter, right? The chapters and the national organizations rely on member dues to operate. So I think it's just really important, like from the get-go, being transparent about like, this is what our local dues are, and this is what our national dues are. And they're way less than a lot of other organizations. And I would also say, if you all find yourself in a situation where people are saying, you know, you do have half of your membership or more that's like, I can't pay dues, you should evaluate, what are your local dues? Like, what are you charging people? It might be too much for the audience that you're reaching, and you should lower them. You should figure out how to run your chapter on a smaller budget with less dues. So yeah, I agree that transparency about the process is really important. And like Alexa was saying, the due dates, we deny every single dues waiver application that's submitted late or is incomplete. So sometimes it feels harsh, I'll be honest. And sometimes it's the chapter's fault that the member didn't get a dues waiver. And the chapter gets really upset. Like the officer at the chapter is really, really upset and is like writing us emails trying to convince us to change our mind. And we don't, because there was a clear deadline and there was a clear requirement. And we'll talk about this in national dues waiver, but we require all the executive board to sign the recommendation, and maybe the entire executive board, except for one, sign the recommendation by the due date. And we denied the dues waiver because it was incomplete. So then the chapter decided to pay on behalf of the member because it was their fault. So I think that is a really setting the right timelines. And on that note, I wanted to say that if a member is experiencing extreme financial hardship, they probably know that going into the semester. I also feel this way about leave of absence. I'm like, a member knows they're going leave of absence probably like before the semester, like before we get to September 15th. Someone probably already knows they're taking a leave of absence, especially if it's not an emergency one. So I know September 1st or 5th might seem really early, but members probably know by that point if they're going to be able to afford dues. Any other questions about local dues waivers or the process? Okay, let's talk about national dues waivers. So just like chapters, we rely on national membership dues and fees to fund the operations of the sorority. So if you look at our sorority budget, you can see that like a 90% of our revenue, maybe 95% of our revenue comes from dues and fees. This includes active member dues, new member dues, activation fees for new members, and expansion fees. So all of the same reasons for requesting a local dues waiver apply to national dues waivers. So to be considered is the key word here, for a national dues waivers, members must have applied for and received a local dues waiver. So no member can request a national dues waiver if they did not get a local dues waivers. So what this is basically doing is prioritizing national dues. The member must complete a dues waiver application. It is a form on DocuSign. You can find the link on OPA portal. And you enter the appropriate information. So the member requesting a dues waiver who already got a local dues waiver, that member would complete this form. And on this form, it asks them to enter the contact information for the chapter executive board. It says the name of the officer. So like treasurer, vice president, president. So it's really great if you give your chapter members contact information for you, like your @omegaphalpha.org email addresses, So it's super simple for them to enter all of the executive board information. And then it automatically goes to everyone's email after the member signs it, fills it out. There's like a bunch of things. I can show you the form after this that they have to fill out. And so then you all are required to sign it. And I believe it's the vice president who is required to fill in the recommendation information. And once everyone has done their part, it kind of goes around, it's like a round robin and DocuSign. And once everyone has done their part, it sends to me and tells me it's complete, and Virginia, the national office administrator, and we put it in a form and we periodically review them. Sometimes we wait until after the deadline and then review them, but sometimes we get a rush of them early in the semester. So we'll review all of those and send out letters to those members. And then sometimes it's like right after the deadline. We always notify all members prior to national dues deadline. And we'll take care of the dues waiver on our end on OPA portal. So the dues waiver standard operating procedure has a few definitions that I want to share with you. That general definition of extreme financial hardship is defined, and then again, as a situation in which one is experiencing financial duress due to circumstances beyond their control. So here are some reasons, like a very recent and unexpected loss of scholarship. So I know earlier I said tuition is expected, so that is not a reason, but unexpected loss of scholarship could greatly impact someone's financial situation. Again, a loss of income is something that we consider, especially if it's something that was like sudden and unexpected, and without that income, they are not able to provide the basic needs for themselves. And you can see a few others. So I had a thought and then it escaped me. Okay, well, maybe I'll remember. Okay, so I want to talk about limitations of dues waivers. So an approved dues waiver application is only valid for the semester in which it was received. This should apply to local, and it does apply to national dues waivers. So if the financial hardship and the need continues, a member must reapply for a dues waiver, both on the local and national level. National dues waivers are limited to 4 total dues waivers. This is 2 years of active membership. This is a recent change that the board of directors made based on the evaluation of the data and information available to us. As I mentioned before, we initially announced some other requirements, and I had a lot of great conversations with chapter executive boards, and we made the decision to remove that. And with this, we also made the decision to make payment plans available for all members. So we used to just offer payment plans on a case-by-case basis. If someone reached out to us, say they didn't get approved for a national dues waiver, we would offer them a payment plan, or if they missed the deadline, we would offer them a payment plan. But because of the feedback that we received from chapters, we decided to make payment plans available for every single member, not just those requesting a dues waiver. So it's 3 installments every other week, starting on the dues deadline, and a member can enter the payment plan on their own. So no one has to contact us about it. They can just pay on a payment plan on OPA portal. They can open their invoice, select the payment plan, and make their first payment. And they'll get a reminder every time. Late payments, late fees are being assessed to national dues now. It's $25 one time when you don't pay by the dues deadline. And the same is true for payment plans. If you don't meet the due dates of your payment plan, you get a late fee every time, which is not helpful. So it defeats the purpose of being on a payment plan. So if your members would like to be on a payment plan, they should put a reminder on their calendar and pay the dues. Okay, so what questions do you all have for me about national dues waivers?
If it does come up for my chapter, like, do we have a lot of support from your team if we need to make phone calls or have questions or concerns?
yeah, if you have questions about like what qualifies as like a financial hardship or something, I'm happy to guide you. I have a little activity where we're going to talk about some reasons that people have submitted, and we're going to have some conversation if you all feel that that is an extreme financial hardship or not. So hopefully your fellow treasurers and VPs could help you like set some general guide of what is financial hardship. Aranza.
So I know you mentioned that now that a late fee will be processed when they make their payments late. Is that automatically like on the invoice? Like if they pay past the deadline, it'll automatically impose that late fee, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's $25, just one time, $25. But the only option on OPA portal is like that it's the day. So like October 2nd, anyone who doesn't pay is assessed $25 late fee. And the reason that we implemented this, which I think we've communicated a couple of times, but I want to share again in case we haven't, is that we spend a lot of time and money chasing down dues payments. So Virginia, our national office administrator, she gets paid, I think it's like $20 an hour. And she literally spends hours chasing down dues payments. And it was like, why are we doing this? Like, it's pretty standard that you get a late fee if you don't pay something by a certain date. So that's the reason we implemented it, because she spends, I mean, there's still people who haven't paid their dues. And we're like in the next semester. So
are we gonna get like sent, or is there a place we can go where it gives us like every deadline for things, being like, here's when you
yeah.
have things?
Yeah, we sent that out to all active members. I sent it. Let me look. It was like a cute little image in the email, and let me see if your email's right to make sure you got it. But let me.
I may have gotten it and I've just forgotten.
It's okay. No worries. You can even say you didn't open it, because there are probably plenty of people that didn't open it. So let me see when I sent it. That would be helpful for you all to find it and what the subject is. It was OFIA updates for all members, and it was sent on July 26th. And it came from managing director, or maybe OPA portal. And at the end, I can't really show you, but I'll try. There was like this graphic. Oh, you can't see it because my background at the bottom. And that graphic tells you every single deadline.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's a good question. Any other questions?
I did get it. It was just I had to, like, our school's email will sometimes block content. So
Got it.
I got it on block now.
Awesome. Great. I'm glad you got it. And I think Taylor was going to put all those dates on OPA portal, so you can just view the national calendar and you'll see all the deadlines. So I think if you go to events and then view calendar, it will show up. I'm not sure if she did that. We just talked about it a few days ago. I'm not sure if she's done it yet, but we're going to put them up there.
Okay.
Okay, so should we talk about some reasons people asked? And these are reasons that chapters approved dues waivers. So I'm going to stop sharing, and then we can have conversation about it. You guys can tell me, do you think, and your fellow people, if you think this should be approved or not? It was already approved, but we're gonna talk about it. Okay. So the first reason is I have an internship because I have to gain experience, but it doesn't pay well. So maybe do the wow face if you say that's a no, and the ta-da, like the celebration thing, if you think that's a good reason to get a dues waiver. Okay, so it looks like the majority says no, that your internship. Does anyone want to share why they think that shouldn't qualify for a dues waiver?
It's a large financial change. It's kind of imminent, and a lot of these internships are required as part of the degree program. So, some of them are internships where you're not allowed to work a second job while you're in it, or there's certain privy laws or rules.
What about those of you who said, no, that isn't a good reason? What's your initial thought? And if, like Candace is saying, a member had to have that internship and they couldn't have any other jobs, would that change how you feel?
My like thought for one, like it could be one of those things where like a payment plan was a better option. The other thing I was just thinking, I'm like, I feel like maybe the member would have to specify like they're solely responsible for paying their dues versus their parents would help them. Because I'm like, if your parents are paying your dues, does it matter if you're not getting paid a lot? Is like one thing I was thinking about.
Yeah, so some chapters I think for sure have like more members whose parents are engaged in financially helping them, and then some chapters that is not the experience that people have. So that's a good thing to point out. Okay, here's another one. I just moved into a new apartment, which is more expensive, and my income has gotten a bit smaller. Okay, anyone? It looks like everyone thinks yes, that qualifies for a dues waiver. Anyone want to share why?
I feel like especially right now with inflation, with everything going up in price, that type of like responsibility is like the cost and everything is out of our like control, because you can only work so much in order to provide like the basics for yourself, such as living expenses. And I mean, if an individual is the one who's like the main person paying for dues and for their living expenses, I feel like they should have like that uh, leniency on being approved a dues waiver.
Anyone else have thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. It's living expenses, having rent, having a place to live, that's very important. So
Okay, let's. Okay, as a college student with hold on. Oh, I lost it. Oh boy. Okay, there it is. Okay, so this person says that they are a college student with no job and have been juggling classes, the workload with the classes, 2 executive positions in 2 clubs, and doing OPA. Okay, it seems like the majority thinks that does not qualify for a dues waiver. I think everyone said that. So anyone want to share your thoughts on why that doesn't qualify or shouldn't?
I feel like it wouldn't qualify because especially classes and everything, that's something that everyone's dealing with, and you choose to join clubs and run for positions. So like I feel like it shouldn't be something that affects like your dues. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like the members overextending themselves. So
Yeah, I agree with that evaluation that the member overextended themselves. Sort of one of those things. It's like lack of planning is suddenly, like OPA's emergency or something. It's interesting. Okay. Okay, one person says, I'm requesting a dues waiver because they pay out of pocket. So they're saying they pay for their dues and they just changed jobs and have a more limited income. Okay, everyone seems to be in agreement with that qualifies. I think that probably fits under that like loss of income category that we kind of talked about, where I feel like that's a good instance where you can gain some additional information from the member of like, is there anything we can do to help you, recognizing that they have a lot to pay for. That potentially could be an opportunity for asking if a payment plan would work, but of course, I think it qualifies. Someone says, I think some of these kind of repeat and based on what you guys have said so far. Like there's several that are like, COVID impacted my ability to have a stable income as a student. So I think, yeah, that's, a lot of people say like COVID reduced their work hours. Okay, so here's one. This person says they depend on work study as their main source of income and to pay their like general expenses. So their, groceries, utilities, etc. And they said because they started graduate classes, they have to cut back on their work study hours. And so they can't afford dues. What do you think? Anyone want to share what their thoughts are?
yeah, I'm a full-time working adult and I'm a full-time student, both, and an active member of exec. So I think it's doable. They didn't have to cut back on their work study hours. It's just maybe balancing the class load.
What do others think?
I don't know, because it just seemed like with some of the other things, like you could also say that could be considered a loss of income. Whether it was, I don't know, whether it was necessary for them to lose the income, they are losing it.
Yeah, I think that's really the fine line. And I this is what I was going to say earlier that came to my mind. I think like what I think of personally when I read through dues waivers applications is paying X dollars, from the national level. Is paying $75 based on this reason that they're giving us going to prevent them from being able to provide themselves and their dependents with basic necessities like food and housing. And so I think I'm also considering, I'm speaking personally, I'm not saying that this is what you all should do. I'm also thinking like that we all are making active choices to be a member of Omega Phi Alpha, right? Like we all made a choice to be here, and hopefully we were given very transparent expectations of what those what the requirements were and what we were accountable to as members of the organization, which includes paying local and national dues. And so I think the main thing that I want to get out here is that all of these reasons that I've given you so far, all of them were approved for local dues waivers. And many of them are saying like one person, I just saw one that said like, I have to pay for school. Like they got a local dues waiver because they have to pay for school. But is that extreme financial hardship? I think probably not, but there are times when there is a loss of income or a loss of scholarship, especially when the people are saying like, my job doesn't have enough hours because of COVID, or, like Aranza's point to inflation, like rent is going up everywhere, right? So sometimes people have an unexpected increase in rent and their income doesn't match that. So I think it really is a case by case basis, but there are several where it's like, I'm paying for school, I'm providing for myself. And it's like, yes, many of you are working full-time jobs and providing for yourselves. Some people for families or helping their families and are still paying dues, So a lot of, those, there's a lot of, like I financially support myself. It's like, yes. Oh, many people do. So I just wanted to do that to like provide you guys with some insight into like what has been approved in the past and sort of what we can consider going forward to have a better process and making sure that I think if we continue to approve dues waiver requests that are people saying like I have to pay tuition, then eventually like everyone's going to be getting a dues waiver. Then it's like, what's the point of dues and how is your chapter going to function when we get to that point? Okay, well, that's all I have specific to dues waivers, but we have plenty of time left. So I'm happy to answer questions specific to, well, it doesn't have to be specific to anything. I'm happy to answer any of your questions. But if you have dues waiver questions, I'm happy to answer those. And then any other questions you all have. Yeah. Go ahead, Addie.
I have a question regarding like a member who wants to drop. So would I just reach out to you? I know it's like a DocuSign process. Just because I was like looking through the email and stuff like that, and I saw it was actually emailing like with you, like that's what the previous vice president did. So would I just reach out and like have everybody like sign that DocuSign?
Yeah, if a member wants to voluntarily disassociate, you don't even have to reach out to me. You can just initiate. I mean, you can reach out to me if you just want to, but I'd be happy to show you where you find that. It looks different on your end. On your end, it would be more files shared by others. And then actually this should show up on your home screen. If you're the vice president, it should show up on your home screen to the right, all the files, and you can just click see all. And so here you will see the voluntary disassociation form and it opens automatically in DocuSign, and typically it does start with a chapter president. I've tried to like stop it from starting with someone and that like anyone can initiate it, but chapters, when I've done that, say it doesn't work. So DocuSign is like a necessary evil sometimes, but yeah, so you would just they would fill out the information. I mean, it really is supposed to start with a chapter president, but I could update it. And this is you, the chapter standards board chair is the VP. I'm gonna write this down and see if I can fix it. So the president would initiate and enter everyone's information. And then when you begin signing, it will automatically send to everyone. And once everyone's completed, we get the completed paperwork. You can go ahead and move their membership status to disassociated on OPA portal. And Virginia will make sure we have all the appropriate paperwork before she approves that change in membership status. So,
Link to this document, the in OPA portal.
Yeah, I found this document on OPA portal. Yeah. They're all under files shared by others for you. I think, let me just log in as one of you. And then
Is it in the vice president's file?
maybe let me make myself an admin of your chapter and show you. So typically you can just click like where it says resources. Yeah. And then you can click vice president and it's right here.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions? Anyone need to know where to find something on OPA portal that I can show you how to find?
So one question, just to like clarify, make sure I have everything right with the dues waivers. So let's say a member applies for both like a local and a national due waiver and gets approved for both. Do we only have to go through the DocuSign process and all that with the national dues waivers?
Yeah.
So if my VP like if we say yeah you get local dues, it stops there. Like we don't need to tell you we're giving them a local dues.
That's
waiver.
what you're doing when you fill out the recommendation form. Let me pull it up so you know what it looks like and you're not just like, so we just fill this thing out, you know, because it's a little confusing. So let me pull it up. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so chapter dues waiver looks like this. So you fill this out. You say you have considered this. Oh man. Okay, sorry. Okay, so this is the part you fill out. So you say, we have considered an application. So you confirm, you type, it will ask you to type their name and your chapter. You select it from a dropdown, and then you tell us the amount of the local dues waiver that you granted, and you put the member's name, and you tell us what type of waiver, like a national active member dues, new member dues and activation fee, and then you choose the semester.
Yeah, and sorry, continue.
Go ahead.
So would the local dues waivers be due the same time as the national dues waivers?
No, it needs to be due before, because you're only filling this out for people like who are telling you, okay, I'm going to apply for a national dues waiver, and they would submit an application that would then trigger you to fill this out. So your local dues waiver process is completely separate from this. And then you only fill this out if you're prompted to fill it out. Like your member who says that they have gotten a local dues waiver is applying for a national dues waiver. And so you would fill this out to confirm that they did get a local dues waiver.
Okay.
I'm sorry, it's kind of confusing. So the local dues waiver process is completely separate, which is why I wanted to do this workshop to like explain that. So it's completely separate. And so a member, you have to create your own process for accepting applications and approving or denying dues waivers on the local level. So once you do that, all the people that you approve local dues waivers for, all of those people are now eligible for a national dues waiver. They may not need it. They may not need a national dues waiver. Maybe they need a local dues waiver because local dues are $250, but they don't need a national dues waiver for $75. So I don't, it varies from person to person. So if they do need a national dues waiver, then they have to fill out the paperwork for that. And then you all will get this via DocuSign to complete. So then you'll have to confirm, we considered the application from this member at our chapter, and we granted them a dues waiver in this amount, given the reason on their name's application, and we do believe that they qualify for national dues waivers and should be considered. Okay. And then we gather all this information, we put it into a spreadsheet, And then we review it all and determine if they get a national dues waiver.
Yeah, so this form is basically after they've like applied. This is saying since we gave them a local dues waiver, we also think they should get the national one.
If they apply for a national dues waiver, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Because you can't get a national dues waiver unless you got a local dues waiver.
So where do they find the national dues waiver?
It's on OPA portal, the
Okay.
application. Yeah. Basically, that's my answer to everything. It's on OPA portal.
Mhm.
But it is on OPA portal. And actually, I might update it. Anyway, it will be on OPA portal, updated or not. That's where they can find it. What other questions do we have? General or specific? What other information like treasurer or CSB information do you think would be helpful for you all to have for your position? What's missing? Nothing? We've thought of everything? Wow.
Yes, I'm just getting comfortable with using the OPA portal. That's the main, knowing how to access all the documents. I'm still at the point where I don't know what I don't know,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Like,
So would it be helpful to do like an OPA portal review? I mean, we have like 20 minutes. Would that be helpful to like walk you guys through the chapter interface? Or do you feel, yeah, okay, I see some people shaking their head. Okay, so, well, let me pick a chapter. I'm gonna pick a chapter that I picked yesterday that had good info posted. I didn't know, but let me pick them. Okay. So this is what it looks like when you log in to your chapter page. Right now it thinks I'm the new chapter president, so I have a president dashboard. So it's gonna look different for everyone. Whenever we have announcements, we will put them here and you can read the full announcement and you can see this one was from Taylor, all about Officer Leadership Academy that you can register for. And this is where she links the monthly chapter officer report. So every officer is required to submit a monthly report. It's due by the 15th of every month. She also has an anonymous feedback form. If you have something that, you know, you hate something we're doing, you can tell us that. We are very receptive to feedback. You know, if there's something you really want us to do, you can tell us that. If there's something you love, you can tell us that. And then Taylor has weekly office hours and you can sign up for one of those with this link. So that's what you get from the announcements. And then if your chapter uses the budget feature in OPA portal, it will tell you what your officer budget is. And then this will tell you any forms that the due date has already passed on or is coming up and you need to complete. So these are the two forms that are due relatively soon for the national organization and that show up. And then like we clicked through earlier, these are all the resources that have been tagged the president position. But if you click view all, you should be able to filter them by other officer positions. And then you can look at all the other headquarters shared things. So like chapter operations has a lot of good stuff. And then national operations is where you'll find a lot of things that we've talked about this weekend. So all the policies, all the national policies are here. All the standard operating procedures are here by category. The categories are kind of confusing, but you can click through and review them all. If you need a copy, like proof of insurance, you can find that here. Here's the most recent Constitution and bylaws. And then we have some finance resources, some expansions resources. We talked about this yesterday. Branding and logos is here. Sorry if I'm going too fast. This was under communications, and then branding and logos. And then chapter logos are here. So all of your chapter horizontal and vertical logos can be downloaded here. Every chapter has one. And then the brand guidelines, they open up in a new tab. Someone asked me for these yesterday. They're here. So you can scroll through and read all about like how we use our marks and things like that, what our colors are, why we pick these colors. And then someone asked me for this too yesterday, the hex codes, like if you use Canva, they're all here. We also have a little chart with the hex codes that we can share. The fonts, everything is here, all the backgrounds. So that's super helpful. And then general OPA logos are here. The Greek letters and all the colors are here. So a lot of really great communications. If you want to submit a story for the blog, you can click the link. If you want to look at past issues of the Chevron, you can view them. It's a fun journey to go on. So yeah, a ton of stuff. And then the forms, like general forms, are under forms. So there are also other places, but we did put them like just under forms. I'll make sure all the necessary forms are here before the start of the semester. So that's that. There's a ton of other stuff. Also, I did record like a bunch, as you see, a bunch of how-to videos, like how to use OPA portal. So if it's good for you to like have the visual and someone walk you through it, you can go on a recorded journey with me and view all the how-to videos. And then the chapter sometimes has files. So the chapter constitution and bylaws are here. The executive board meeting minutes are here. And then the chapter meeting minutes under chapter files. If you want to share files with other people, you can share them. And then like this is 5 chapter has shared everything other people have shared. But I think shared by the national office is probably like the most important one. So that's files. If you go to forms, these will be all the available forms for you. So these are for new chapter officers. So these are officer forms. And what that means is the national organization is collecting chapter information. And then these are for members. So individual members can complete these. These can only be completed once by one person. And then you can create forms, you can manage forms on your end, you can do all those things. You have some courses, you can view the courses. So these all show to me because I'm national staff, but it will look a little different for you. And then sometimes people post jobs to the job board. Chapters use this for their meeting minutes. Sometimes you can post them. We went through this yesterday in a president group. So like all their minutes are here, which is really great because their alumni can see their minutes too. So they can see what they're up to. And then there is a chapter budget feature where you can create the budgets for each member. You can edit these too. You can name them different things. You can allocate an amount to it. And then you can log your expenses here as well. It's not very sophisticated, but it exists. And then there's a comment form. You can send a comment to your officers. And there's a comment form for your members too, where they can submit anonymous comments if they want. And then the officer dashboard looks like this, which sort of has everything here. You can add a new event, you can email all your members, you can text all your members, you can post an announcement for all your members, you can add files, create forms, manage the courses, post the minutes. I think this is really helpful. This is like the progress report for service hours. That was just
dashboard.
Oh, you go to manage officer dashboard. The transition tool, this is like what membership directors and vice presidents have to use in order to transition members. So if you have a member that needs to drop, you can drop them from this screen, and you can also graduate members. The membership director will add the PNMs and then move them. So that was here. That was the member transition tool. You can manage the officer positions. So I think usually the president is the only person who has that. You can view your member report, like what are all the members. You can generate the report based on them. Like, are you just looking for active members? Oh, I didn't select the name. You can say their full name. Are you looking for their phone number, email? And then it will show you all the information. That's helpful if you're looking for alumni. Like if you want to get a list of alumni members, like maybe you want to mail them something, or, you know, something, I don't know. You can generate a report with that. This is like all of New Chapter's alumni. You can see there's a lot of them, 600. And this is helpful. You can see what alumni you're missing information for. So you can try to find lost alumni and get them to log into OPA portal and update their information. It's really helpful to us as a national organization. That's a great service to the members of the sorority project. So that's one thing you can do. You can view records, you can view service hours, chapter dues and fees. So New Chapters dues are $55. So this is where you would pay your chapter dues. If you go to my invoices, that's where you would pay your national dues. There's none for me because I don't have any national dues. And then you can also view any other requirements that your chapter has set here. We talked about the national calendar earlier. If you click view national calendar, that's where you'll see all the deadlines. So that's under events, view national calendar. You can view your district calendar. You can see a lot of people have things on their district calendar. And you could view your regional calendar. These are all the chapters in the region. Yeah, lots of different things. You can view a family tree, you can view families in different ways. Anything else?
Hey, if we still have some time. Sorry.
Yeah, we do. We have 15 minutes.
I did start working on that budget template, and I can share my screen and we can see if what I'm putting together we think would be helpful.
Go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's look at this one, I think. Winnie, which one do I want to pick?
I was wondering what cat that was, Winnie.
This is Winnie. Which screen am I sharing? Is it the not helpful one?
Chapter budget template. That's what you're sharing.
Ooh, perfect. Okay. Let me find you guys again because I miss you. There you are. Okay. So this is what I started to put together, where you would first fill out your budget, and it's got, you know, wonderful formulas in it already, and Winnie can put in some like fake numbers and it will do math for you, including subtracting your estimated dues waivers. And then you can just put in, I don't know, you're gonna spend all your money on recruitment. And Winnie, helpful. Okay, I'm trying to do something, Fred. Oh my God. All right, you're going down on the ground. Okay, thank you. So then you would just fill this out and then it automatically would pull into a budget versus actual template for you. So you don't even have to carry it forward. Anytime you update your budget, it's going to pull through onto this budget versus actuals. And then we set up a opportunity to put in your transactions. And so like I just put in a sample transaction here. So you would just put in like the date and whatever you wanted it to be. Say it was like, I don't know, recruitment supplies, like I said, t-shirts, whatever description. Probably need to be more helpful than that. $200. And then all of the categories are in a drop down here, and you just pick which category it is.
I love this spreadsheet. This is great.
Okay, so far so good, right?
Yeah.
So sisterhood. And then when you go to your budget versus actuals, that shows up in sisterhood. So anytime you put the individual transactions in, it automatically updates your budget versus actuals here. And so then theoretically, if you keep up with all of your transactions throughout the year, and if you use these categories, you literally already have like everything you need to fill out your AFR, is all I'm saying. And so that's where I was going with that. And then I was going to start working on like monthly reconciliation template and how I wanted to handle that. But I wanted to talk to Alyssa about that a little bit more. But, and if you wanted to make this more detailed, there, you know, there could be ways where you could update the formulas and such like that. But yeah, how are we liking this so far? It sounds like this is good.
Yeah, this is great.
Love it. When will we have access?
Oh, look at this. Okay. Positive. So, I mean, this didn't take me too long to put together. So I think I just need to talk to Alyssa about a few things about how in depth we want to make the rest of it. And then like, honestly, probably by the end of the weekend, it could probably be out just where she showed you in a portal where all of those shared from national office documents are. What do you think, Alyssa?
Yeah, for sure. I believe you that you're in a committed relationship with Microsoft Excel. And that is really great for you. I am not. This is way better than I would have put together. So I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm considering, I didn't know if this was getting like too wild of like making each month template like rec already there and linked to the prior month. So it just kept pulling forward your balances for you, and then you just have to put in the bank stuff. So I think that's probably what I'm leaning towards doing, since you guys seem to really like this. And once I make it once, it's really easy to just copy out that month. It'll just be like a lot of tabs in here, but I feel like it could be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, even if all of you have been coming to all of this, so you have more information. But even the people who haven't been coming, if they only use the first 3 tabs, like if they don't dive into like monthly reconciliation, that's like way better information than I think most people have been tracking.
Yeah, so.
And that's exactly based on the AFR. So it'll be super easy for you guys to be like, oh, here's our expenses for everything, and it should equal.
Yeah.
That's great. It kind of blows my mind because it really would have taken me a long time. Very long time. It took me like literally 5 hours. Well, I was reconciling 2 years of banking for an organization. Yeah. It took me like 5 hours on
it's
QuickBooks.
Real spicy sometimes, but you know, like I thought that like if you are in the case of one of the chapters who is like, I don't know what to do, but I have this pile of bank statements, like then you could at least just put all of the transactions in and it'll do all the math for you. So like, and you could label it as best you can. And then that would at least, then you can just like literally dump your information into the AFR form. So I think that's going to be my game plan, and I can easily keep getting that done this weekend. And I think we can roll it out within the next week that it's available. But it sounds like it would be worthwhile for me to include the detailed tabs for monthly reconciliations to set up. And then also including, I'll just add some like high level instructions in here on, you know, if for some reason I formatted it down to like 250 transactions, but if you're like going wild and you got more than that, then, you know, we can show you how to address that, as well as I think that probably in here, I'll put like an info tab that has the information from my presentations.
Did I lose you and no one else did?
No, I can't hear her either.
Oh, I was like, oh my gosh, we can't hear you, Alexa. Oh no.
Hello?
Oh, now you're back. Oh, okay. We lost you for a minute.
I don't know if I said anything. Maybe I was just quiet.
Oh, I was like, where did she go? This is great. Okay, I'm so glad to have this. That was very fast. Okay, guys, wow, this is what you get when you're like, we need a budget template. How do we do this?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're coming up on time. Time zones are very hard for me. Okay, so right now in Eastern time, it's 3:40 almost, right?
Yes, I think 3:45 to 3:50 is there a break? And then
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
if you want a 10-minute break, you could break now instead of a 5-minute break.
Yeah, how are you guys feeling? Are you feeling good? Are there any other questions that you have specific to your chapter, Omega Phi Alpha in general, or your chapter? Any more questions?
I'm sure I'll have more later, but maybe I'll just set up an individual meeting with you.
Yeah, that's always good. I'm glad to answer questions separately too. It looks like okay, so I think we should just break now so we can all leave the breakout room and go back to the main session, and you can take a break. And I think that the next session starts at 3:55 p.m. Eastern time. We set it at a weird time so we could get people back and have like 5 minutes to spare. So yeah, we'll close this breakout room.